Welcome to the Connected Teamwork Podcast by Growth Leaders Network. How do we learn to truly thrive together? How do we stay connected to our authentic selves, each other, and our purpose as a team, especially when challenged? How do we unlock the deeper levels of group intelligence? Enjoy this episode of the Connected Teamwork Podcast and learn practical tools to evolve the connectedness of your team to its next level.
Hi there, Carson Hetty. It's great to see you. Thanks for being with us today. If you're joining today, feel free to post where you're coming from in the chat, where you're joining us from. Today's going to be very story-driven, so we'd love to hear stories from you. I'm going to talk today about the value and the lessons learned from connected and disconnected teams. Because as you probably are aware, there's a lot that we can learn from both that really can inform us as leaders, but also how we can work better as leaders and as part of teams for the extent of our careers. So thanks for being with us. First off, I think it's always important to really get grounded in what do we mean by connectedness? What do we mean by disconnectedness? And when I think about a connected team, I've been very blessed to be a part of many of them. But I think about the value of the communication, the respectfulness of it, the level of transparency that exists in these connected teams, really understanding what's at the pulse of all the people that are a part of that team, what matters to them, building initiatives and building rapport and cadences around what matters to the other people that are a part of your team. But I also think about collaboration in the truest sense of the word. Within every team, there's going to be very unique strengths and skills and superpowers that everyone brings to bear. And I think a great collaborator, but also a mark of a connected teammate, is going out and proactively finding these things that people are great at and deferring to people in those situations or wanting to learn from others in those types of situations. I think those things are exceptionally important. And that's really what collaboration is all about in these types of situations, because connectedness will ultimately unlock the optimum performance of the team if we're all out for understanding each other's superpowers and also understanding our own and how we can leverage them to up-level everyone. There is the wonderful quote about rising tides raise all boats. And that is what a great connected team does, is when we're all working for the greater good and finding ways to collaborate better, we are a better sum of the parts. And that's indicative of a connected team. Overall team dynamics is the byproduct of that. We as leaders, we set the tone, the creation and the nurturing of a connected team culture. Now, what does it mean when we talk about a disconnected team? Well, that one's probably a little bit easier to answer. A disconnected team, typically the hallmarks of these are where people are operating in silos. There's the lone wolf mentality, people who don't or won't ask for help. Ego can play a big part in these. And sometimes that ego is driven by fear. We fear asking for help. We fear, needing other people to lean in and help us because we get the sense that it might devalue our contribution. If someone else can step in and do great work, and we fear that it overshadows what we bring to the table, that can cause some of the disconnectedness in teams. So a big part of it is leaving your ego at the door. I was recently watching the documentary on We Are the World on Netflix. And it's great, by the way. I was growing up in the era where We Are the World was a big thing. It was a favorite song of mine. And obviously the greatest artists of the time were a part of that. And this was a great example of bringing people together. And that was Quincy Jones's mantra on the door as these world famous artists were coming in is, leave your ego at the door. And it was all about coming together for a mission, a common cause. And that is the very definition of a connected team. You're going to have a lot of really great A players that you're working with as a part of your team. You may very well be an A player, and your skill set, your superpowers, your contribution, your impact, they are not diminished because there are other A players that you're working with. In fact, the more that you go out of your way to proactively seek ways to shine a light and illuminate these wonderful people that you're surrounded by, that is the hallmark of a connected team. So I'm going to talk a little bit more about some characteristics and examples of things that I've seen in connected teams that I've been privileged to be a part of. Again, communication. A lot of times with communication, it flows almost seamlessly. And leaders set the tone for this. I want to preface and caveat a lot of this by saying that leadership has a really strong hand in setting the tone for a culture of connectedness. And a lot of times when I don't see connectedness in an organization or with a team, you look and you wonder, like, how has leadership set the tone for this? And also, what checks and balances exist? How are we staying at the pulse of what matters to the team? How are we getting signals from our team and reacting and responding to that? I always encourage my teams to, whether it was back in the day when I ran a very large call center, and I would create office betterment committees so that my team could spend time, constructing plans to improve areas where we needed improvement, or they could strategize without me, without the leadership, and then they could, elect a mouthpiece, a conduit to get that feedback to me and to the leadership team so that we could make sure that the team was the voice of where we went forward. They had their fingerprints on the blueprint of the future. And that encourages buy-in. Those are some great connected teams that I've been privileged to be a part of it. And I will tell you as well, sometimes it's not a drastic overhaul that can take a disconnected team to a connected team. And I'll give you an example of this. I've had a few situations where I've come into teams that were not performing as they should be from perhaps a metrics or an efficiency or a results perspective. Now, the last thing that you want to do as a leader is to make drastic changes or very quick reactive movements or statements as a result of the trajectory that a team is on. See, our work and our professional lives are very grounded in people and process. And these things are very critical. There's a balance that needs to be found. And it's always about finding the right people and ensuring that we are following the right process. Now, these things are going to change. People will move on. People will get promoted. New people will come into the mix. And the variables by which we operate will change very drastically. Where I've seen this be successful in turning a disconnected team into a connected team with sometimes some very minor tweaks is, as a leadership organization, spending time with the team, diving in, listening, observing. Find out from the people that are doing the day-to-day job what's working, what's not. Helping them, again, put their finger where we go. Where I met with a team that was struggling and was actually slated to be for this team as kind of a last-ditch effort they needed to be, and spent not making any judgments, not making any changes, really just sitting in offices and cubicles and listening to them one-to-one, listening to them in group settings, listening to customer calls that they were on, and really understanding, again, what are all the variables? What are the lays of the land? What's preventing this team from being successful and hitting the efficiency and results metrics that they need to be? And then laying this out in a very common sense approach. And then collectively as a group, making recommendations on where we needed to go. Now, again, as a leader, we can't always change everything that our teams provide us. I think it's really important. And I've, having 25 years of working experience, I've seen a lot of different iterations of employee surveys. We can't change all 20 things that come out of an employee survey. But if you track them and you show that you're listening and you have some quick wins and you show a few things that you're able to change right out of the gate, it shows that you're listening. It shows that you're paying attention. It shows you've got your hand at the pulse of the organization. And it shows your organization that their voice matters. I'll give you another example, scenario that I came into once upon a time. Where this organization was actually doing very well in a lot of key areas, but what I was being tasked to do was to really enhance the culture and start to challenge them to do some things. This was kind of a fledgling organization, and they wanted to make it more, it almost felt like a small business inside of a larger organization. And their goal was really to, more deeply commercialize it and add some more components of the overall commercial engine. And what was great about this, I always love when you can step into a relatively new role, or you can really forge your path as part of an organization. Because when you're seeking connectedness in these organizations, you just want to observe. You want to see what is working and what is not. And then you're going to bring your unique experiences and your perspective and your ability to see around corners based on what you've done and what you've encountered. And you apply that and you magnify that into the lens you're looking at with this new connected or disconnected, in this case, team. And it wasn't a disconnected team out of any type of malice. A lot of times there are disconnected teams that are disconnected for a reason, because people don't want to genuinely connect with each other. And then there's others that are disconnected for a variety of reasons. I was not as good of a connected teammate in my early career. I didn't have mentors. I didn't spend a lot of time trying to hone or master my craft. I had found some early success, but I also didn't know the value of working together with the collective sum of the team. This is something that very much have learned over the last several years as I work now in an organization where you might have 30, 40 people in your extended team touching one opportunity or project. And so it's critical in those types of situations that you're working connectedly. One thing that I mentor a lot of my talent, my people on in these types of situations is sometimes the finesse in conversations. You may have a very stark difference of opinion of somebody else on your extended team. You may have a very set thing or way that you think something should be carried out, and perhaps the antithesis was actually done. But you don't want to ever show up like a blunt object or be off-putting in the way that you give that feedback constructively to your teammates. And so I always, inform my team or coach my team in order to really effectively navigate these situations, especially when they're going to need their teammates. They're so integral to the process. Make the statements and the feedback and the coaching and the guidance you give about your audience. How can you make it about their best interests? Because I found so often we're after the same things. We want the same outcomes. People want to be successful. They want to win. They want to have the right impact. When you know that your teammate is after the same thing you are, even if perhaps you would have a different way of going about it, a lot of times it helps you in order to find that commonality and that connection point in order to have connectedness. And that's why it's so key. And when I'm able to go to a peer who maybe I have a differing opinion with, and let's swab the deck for a moment and basically say, I know we're after the same things here. I would love to hear your thoughts. And I would also love to get guidance from you on how I can best, within my purview, support what we're mutually after, or what you're after. Or if I need a piece of information that I'm relying on this teammate to give, how can I best support you? Or how can you put me in a position where I can best support you as part of this project and initiative? There are always ways that you can finesse the words you choose to use so that you can win friends and influence people. Because at the end of the day, that's what it all goes back to, Dale Carnegie. And making sure that you are showing up in a way that is conducive to collaboration, that you're being communicative, sometimes overly so, and also very transparent. I find that it's important to really understand and know how others stand to benefit. A few years back, I created a program with a very large sales team, and I called it Plays That Get You Paid. I found that a lot of my sales team was competing for time on the calendars of some of these other specialists, ancillary support people. And I wanted to really arm them with the fact that to attract them, you have to make sure that you're showing up caring about what matters most to these people that you want the attention of. What types of conversations or projects or opportunities do they need to have in order to be successful? So using things like that and understanding what matters to this person over here is the best way to get them into your camp. I would also tell you that one of the other things that I always try to do as a leader is I always try to focus on two things. One, what I wish I had known when I was an individual contributor in that same seat. The things that I now have a vantage point, a balcony eye view of because of my leadership position, that I can really help arm them with what's going to be the most value so that they can increase and enhance their impact and their outcomes that they're able to drive in the organization. These are the things that are going to take not only their results and today and their short term to the next level, but also their career trajectory. I'm big on the 3 R's with my team and the importance of relationships, resources, and reputation. And these 3 things will really catapult you to the stratosphere if you leverage them correctly. Relationships are important. Everybody out there knows something you don't. What is it? What can I go out and find out and learn from them? Now, how can I make them a hero? Especially when other people are touching the same project that you're touching. How can you make everyone around you a hero, a winner? Because guess what? If you're investing in them winning and you're on the same project, you're going to win too. And if you can amplify everyone else around you, it's going to make people want to work with you. Those types of things are deposits into a connected team. Those are a lot of the things that I see when it comes to the characteristics of connected teams. Would love to see some comments in the chat for some of the things that you see in connected teams or disconnected teams. And we are going to take a short break. When we come back, we're going to talk a little bit more about some experiences, but also practical applications of how you can continue to instill connectedness in teams and also how you can learn from the connected teams that are out there today.
You are listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Do you want to learn more about building the next level of connectedness in your team? Please contact Growth Leaders Network on LinkedIn. And now, back to the show.
So we are here today on the Connected Teamwork podcast, and we're talking about the value and the learnings from both connected teams and disconnected teams. I spent a lot of time talking about connected teams, really defining what they are. I want to spend a few minutes talking about the challenges that are faced by disconnected teams. We've all been there, right? We've been in these situations where there is lack of trust. Again, I want to make clear that a lot of times leadership can set the tone and can make or break the level of connectedness within teams. It's important that we are always thinking about the needs of the many when it comes to the teams that we support. And when you have situations where you get the sense that leadership plays favorites, or there's a lack of trust, or there's gossip about members of the team, there's immediately a fracture, and that is going to require attention. It's also very important that as leaders, we are not reactionary. I've had many, many situations where I've had 2 people on the exact same team that perhaps had a difference of opinion, different scenario, both obviously had a vested interest in the outcome. And it's really easy as a manager, as a leader, when you're sucked into these scenarios and somebody's really passionate about this path and their perspective, to err on the side of, one side over the other. But very rarely do we have to make immediate knee-jerk or reactive decisions. In fact, most of the time we don't. It's really important that you get all of the perspectives and that these are heard, because in disconnected teams, that's what's not happening. People don't feel supported. They don't feel heard. And those are some challenges that are faced by disconnected teams. There's lack of communication, lack of collaboration, and people are not showing up as their honest and authentic selves. Another thing that I think is really important to point out here too, that is a hallmark of a disconnected team, is when a leader fails to leave their ego at the door. See, here as leaders, we are the hero makers, not the heroes. A lot of individual contributors, especially when you're in a sales environment, yeah, it's great when you are the hero. right? You're going out, you're winning the awards, and you are, the one who gets the recognition and the glory. When you're in a leadership role, it's really important that you are not trying to put yourself in that hero mode, that you are shining a light on the people that are making things work, making things happen. Years ago, I think recognition is a really important deposit that you can make into this. I had a peer of mine that said, over the last few years, who would always say, recognition is a free investment. And that's so true. It takes a moment to acknowledge someone else who's done something great on your team, and making it a part of your culture, making it a part of your internal chats, where you can call people out. Now you can tag people on LinkedIn. You may have some kind of internal kudos system. On our team meetings every week, every Monday, I actually picked up a practice years ago from a leader of mine where it was called DJ of the Week. And any colleague can nominate another colleague for DJ of the Week. And whomever wins, they pick a song. And that's the song that kicks off our team meeting every Monday. And you also make sure that there is a diversity to that element. You don't always want to make sure that the hard driving salesperson wins every time. Making sure that you're shining a light on some of these technical specialists and these other people that are making your world go round. It's so critical to make sure that you're proactively recognizing people as part of a connected team, because they will feel connected, they feel appreciated, they feel seen. And that is of exceptional importance. We are always on a quest to foster connectivity within our teams. And there's a lot of ways to do this. I encourage you to solicit others to give answers to that. Create recognition committees. Ask your team what they would want to see most. One of the things that I've employed is I've started to work with different teams, and I've counted about 12 that I've been a part of over the years. And as you well know, people move in and out of these teams. Ideally, you get your people promoted and you develop a bench and bring more to the table. I've leveraged a survey for many, many years when I get a new team member. And part of that survey is, how do they want to be led and coached and included as part of the team? Are there very specific things or stretch projects that they might want to do? And furthermore, especially if I'm coming into a team that I'm new to, but they are not new to that team, it's of utmost importance that these folks don't feel like they're starting over. A lot of times people are working on a promotion, they're working on an opportunity, they're working as part of a stretch project or a stretch assignment. And the last thing that they want is for the new person to come in and make changes, or to feel like they're having to start from scratch with that promotion pursuit. And so I always make sure to ask them, do you have anything that's in flight that you want to make sure that I'm aware of, that I can make sure I'm supporting the right way? It's very critical that you make talking about not only the day-to-day and the job and the impact and the outcomes as part of your one-on-one with a team, but also to talk about the career lens and the things that you can do to help sponsor them and evangelize for them and to help take them to the next level, help them optimize their experience. One of the other things too is we spend a lot of time in one-to-many settings. I spend intentional time not only with my direct reports, but also with the broader team of 30, 40, 50 people that touch my market. And I think that's important, because then you have transparency and connectedness. Everybody sees what everyone's doing. Everyone can be part of the recognition. And we can also shine a light on the best practices. It's critical that these things come to the forefront. There is no reason, it doesn't take food off the table for Mary in Connecticut to do something that John in Sacramento is doing, and to make sure that we're sharing and evangelizing these best practices. Those are the types of things that continue to not only make us better, but also in this area of hybrid work. Right now, in this era of hybrid work, where we're working a lot of times in remote environments, my entire team is scattered all throughout the US and Canada. And so to be able to work with a team remotely, sure, we see each other in person when we can, but it's a great way to stay connected when you look for all of the ways that you can communicate, and sometimes even over communicate. Back channel chats that we have during a client call or a customer call or a project. talking about different ideas, and even using these as opportunities to spotlight your peer as opposed to you. If you know somebody has a great idea and they can add something to this conversation, you can not only call them out in an internal back channel chat that your end audience can't see, but you can also call them out while you're in this virtual setting and show that you recognize them and you appreciate them. So again, as a leader, what are the ways that we should be looking at how to build and also how to maintain connected teams? So we've talked a little bit about ways that you can build these teams, but maintenance of this is of critical importance, because guess what? Things will not always be, a straight line, smooth sailing. There will be changes in variables, mergers, acquisitions, pandemics, things that throw the entire system into, at first glance, potential disarray. And as a leader, we've got to keep a steady hand on the wheel. That is going to be part of the culture and the legacy, frankly, that you create and leave. And so when it comes to maintaining a culture of connectedness with your team, I think back on some of the teams that I've had in the past. And without a doubt, there have been situations, kind of gotcha and aha moments where the fear of the trajectory that even I was on as a leader made me want to, and even in some cases do, have a knee-jerk reaction to where we were, and to maybe show up in a different way that masked the fear that I was having, but showed up as maybe some kind of tough love, or showed up as, more firm results-based expectation. But if you really get grounded in what it means to keep a steady hand on the wheel as a team leader and also as part of a connected team, you'll realize the importance of always making sure that the candor and the transparency and the collaboration and the recognition and appreciation transcends through all of it. I think back years ago in the call center, and there was some economic downturn. We were calling into some very tough markets. And it was critical that, I'm a probability and odds person. It's why I don't gamble at all anymore, because the house always wins. But in this case, you can set yourself up for success by consistent execution, by command and mastery of your process and the variables that are a part of it, but also being very communicative, collaborative, and transparent with your team, making sure that they understand the why behind what you're doing, making sure that they see the metrics that you're after, the budgetary numbers, the aspirations. I can tell you, as not only a leader, but also as an individual contributor, the teams that I felt the most connected with were when my senior leadership would come to me and they showed behind the curtain. They shared what we were going after and why the budget was set the way that it was, why the growth metrics were set the way that they were, why they were after XYZ, what the biggest challenges that they were having. So my advice to you as leaders is, the more that you're transparent about why things are the way they are, what perhaps the total addressable market is, what the opportunity is for them, how they can leverage these opportunities and experiences to not only build their arsenal, but also take these experiences and parlay them into new experiences or new opportunities. And furthermore, looking for ways holistically to support your team and your employees. Those are the types of things that will consistently keep a steady hand on the wheel. Even when results are down or things aren't going exactly the way you want, you can still be a very genuine, authentic leader. You can still talk about, the things that you're grappling with and struggling with and why. You can still dive in and share with your team why the important things are the important things. And ultimately, that is what connected teamwork is all about. Making sure that we are all in understanding of what the mission is and why it's the mission, that we're adjusting and reacting and responding and pivoting based on changes to the variables or the market or whatever it is that we touch with whatever audience we're serving. And furthermore, that we are continuing to look for ways to support each other. I have found that if you look intentionally at your sphere, the people that you touch in your sphere of teamwork, and you work very intentionally to understand what matters to them what makes them tick, what they're after, and you uncover ways that you can impact them positively, and you make deposits in those relationships as often as you can, everyone wins. And that's the power of connected teamwork. I'm Carson Hetty. Thank you for joining me today on this episode of Connected Teamwork. It's ironic. I recently had the opportunity, speaking of connectedness, to meet Hylke Faber, my co-host on this show, in person for the first time. Incredible experience. And now, of course, we're doing some of these shows without each other. But I will tell you, can't wait to see you all next time. We'll be back again next Monday with another episode of Connected Teamwork. If there's topics that you want to see, or if you would like to be a guest on Connected Teamwork, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to have you. And in your pursuit of connectedness within your team, always make sure that you are controlling what you can and that you're keeping the best intentions of the entire team holistically at heart. Thanks for being with us today. Take care.
Thank you for listening to the Connected Teamwork podcast by Growth Leaders Network. Take a moment to reflect on what you learned today that can help build your team. Also, if you like, think about one of your team members and what you appreciate about them. Let them know. Enjoy connecting more deeply to what is great about them. And see you next time at the Connected Teamwork podcast.